All right, we're going to be going over the key terms for BIO231. And again, I'm just going to be the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to kind of point to something and then I'll kind of say the structure, okay? So, well, you're just going to we're going to run through these speedy fast. So, make sure to pause the video as I point at something and try to take a guess at what it is, and then I'll write it down. All right, we're going to start off with the first bone, which is the frontal bone. Okay, and we know that the frontal bone has this specific point here that is right above this suture. This is called your glabella. This is the anterior-most point. Next up, we have the orbital plate of the ethmoid bone. You can kind of see it here, right, from this internal view. This is the orbital plate of frontal bone. We can also see it from the inside, so I'll say it again when we see it inside. The other thing that we can see is going to be our zygomatic process. Again, we're talking about the frontal bone, so zygomatic process of the frontal bone. The frontal sinus, we need to cut this in half and take a look inside, but typically it's just going to be like an opening here. And again, that's the frontal sinus, right? We need to look at it from the inside, so hopefully there's an image that we can take a look at. Let's see, is there one? No, not quite. Okay, let's go back. Oh, come on. Okay, all right, the next one is going to be the maxilla. Oops. Let's see here. This entire bone. Maxilla. The maxilla also has a space in here, right? So that would be your maxillary sinus. The next thing is going to be you have your little openings here. These are called your infraorbital foramen, which is just an opening. You have them on two sides. We also have our alveolar margin, which connects to the teeth. We also have this specific region right around here that's really close to your cheekbone. So this is your zygomatic process of the maxilla. We also have a frontal process of maxilla. From this view, so I'm just going to tell you what other structures we can see from this view as well. So we can see in here, this is going to be our perpendicular plate of ethmoid bone. And that makes up the superior nasal septum. In the bottom, that would be our vomer. From this view as well, we can see these openings. These are our mental foramen. We know that for the mandible, we also have the region where the teeth kind of sink in, then that is also called alveolar margin. The other things that we can see from here would be, of course, this is our zygomatic bone. And we know that the zygomatic bone, you guys will need to be able to identify the temporal process, which is seen from a lateral view. So this specific region here, this is the temporal process of zygomatic So let's see what else can we take a look at from this view here as well. We know that you also have this structure here. This section is going to be the orbital plate of zygomatic bone. From this view, we can also see a little bit of this opening here. This is our superior orbital fissure. Next up, going back to frontal bone, there are these little notches sometimes they're complete openings. So this would be superior, this would be your supra-orbital foramen. From here, you can kind of see lacrimal, but not really. So we'll kind of hopefully zoom in a little bit. But let's take a look at the stuff that we can see from this view here. So from this view, you can see parietal, you can see temporal, you can see your frontal, you can see zygomatic, maxilla, mandible, and then at the back, right? So this would be, those lines kind of help you kind of distinct or kind of create boundaries around all of these. And then our sphenoid. Okay. So, from this view, we can see our lacrimal. So this entire kind of bone here would be the lacrimal bone, but the actual depression, right, everyone sees this opening. This depression here is called lacrimal fossa. You can also see from this side view, this is our nasal bone. So we said this was lacrimal. Here we have a little bit of our maxilla. Here we have our nasal, but you can see a little bit of this bone here, and this would be your orbital plate of ethmoid bone. From this angle, we can appreciate a bunch of other things, so let's kind of talk about them now. The first one is going to be, so let me kind of draw an outline. We're going to be focusing on this bone. So this structure right here is called your zygomatic process, and it's talking about it of the temporal bone. We have this opening, which is the external acoustic meatus. Then we have this bump here, which is your mastoid process. Next up, there's this depression here. So it's like this specific thing. This would be your mandibular fossa. You can also see here, it's pretty cool. It's like this sharp structure. This is your styloid process. You can also appreciate, let's take a look at the mandible, right? So this specific structure is called mandibular notch. It's sitting in between two kind of bumps. So we'll talk about this one first. This is your condyle of mandible, or you can also say mandibular condyle. The anterior one would be the coronoid process. Next up is this region of the mandible, which is called the ramus. The moment you get this curvature here, down here, this would be called the angle. A majority of the mandible is the body. And then we know if we were to remove any of these teeth here, like if you don't have a teeth, right, the actual socket that those teeth sit in is called alveoli. And then let's see, what else are we missing for? I think that's it for, oh, we're missing one thing for the mandible, but that's from the internal view. So let's see. Let's see. Well, I guess we can't, oh, we can see a little bit of it in this image here, right? So this opening here would be your mandibular foramen. And we have them on both sides, but right, we can't really see it here because this is an anterior view. All right, so let's go back to, let's take a look at the structures we can see here. So here, what we can appreciate is right here, all of this. This would be our orbital plates of frontal bone. Then we know that in the middle we have our ethmoid bone. So the ethmoid bone, right, is made up of this rectangular region, which is called the cribriform plate. If we zoom in, oh wow, that zoomed in really fast. You can see all of these tiny little holes. These would be your cribriform or olfactory foramina. You can use either one. Then this thing in the middle, right, this thing right here would be your crista galli. Okay, so let's move a little bit kind of towards the middle. So I'm going to outline the next structure that I want to kind of talk about, right? So these are specific wings. These are called your lesser wings of sphenoid bone. You can see that immediately kind of medial, you have these openings. These are called your optic canal. Next up is going to be these structures here. Mainly, I'm just drawing a general kind of outline. So this would be the greater wings. And then we also have this specific structure here, which is super important, right? This is the depression. This is called your sella turcica. And then we're going to talk about a couple of openings that we can appreciate going from anterior to posterior. I tell my students ROS. So up here at the top, we have foramen, rotundum. Over here we have foramen, ovale, because it's oval shaped. And then the last one, which is the smallest, would be your foramen spinosum. This region of the temporal bone is called the petrous region. Then we have these openings here, which are your internal acoustic meatuses, or meatus for just one of them, but you can see them on both kind of regions. Then we have this one here, which I told you guys it kind of looks like a jelly bean. Jugular foramen. That was jugular foramen. You also have this larger opening, which is the foramen magnum. Then we have these tinier little openings right next to it, which are your hypoglossal canals. So hypoglossal canal. And then now we're in the occipital bone region, right? So occipital bone. All right, so here's our mandible. We know that this is going to be kind of this kind of coil wire thing is going to be kind of blocking an opening. So that would be our incisive fossa, right? And then sometimes it's called a foramen if it's the actual kind of opening. We know that this entire region here would be the maxilla. We know there's a specific region right around here. Oh, right around here. It's called your palatine process. This entire bone here is called your palatine bone. It's made up of two kind of plates. The one that's kind of like horizontal, right, going in this direction, is called your horizontal plate. And then the other one, if we kind of zoom in, right, the palatine bone kind of gives off a little bit of a upwards portion of the bone, right? So this would be called your, oh, it's kind of like more inside, sorry, so like right here. This would be your vertical plate, sometimes called your perpendicular plate. Okay, and then on the sphenoid bone, so right next to that vertical plate, which was somewhere over here, right, there's a couple of other things that you can see, right? These kind of like two plates here. These are a part, again, of sphenoid, and they're called, they're going to be called your pterygoid processes, or pterygoid process. And then we can also see from this angle, we can see foramen ovale, we can see foramen spinosum, so I'm just going to write spinosum for the sake of time. We can also see the occipital condyles, and then we also know that over here, right, this is our very sharp styloid process. We know that that's our styloid process. This bump over here is mastoid process. And then we know that in between them, you have an opening, which is called the stylomastoid foramen. So, right, you can see it there. I think I'm blocking it with the other one. Let's see. Yeah. So you can best see it over here, but again, it should be over here as well. That's stylomastoid foramen. The other thing is going to be your carotid canal, and this one's best seen from an inferior view. Let's see if we have that. Oh, we do. Right, so your carotid canal is going to be this one right here, and also this one. That's your carotid canal. Right, and the way that you figure that out is it's always going to be slightly lateral to your styloid process. So over here, our styloid process is teeny tiny, right? But essentially, it would be immediately kind of lateral to it, or immediately kind of, not lateral, sorry, medial, immediately inferior to our foramen ovale. So here's your foramen ovale, immediately go to the back. This would be our carotid canal. You could also see here, again, foramen magnum, again, you can see the vertical plate of the palatine bone, you can see that incisive fossa, and then, let's see, what else can we see? And then those specific pterygoid processes of the sphenoid bone, sorry. Okay, let's see. What else are we forgetting? I think we got everything except for the frontal sinus, but again, you will need to see that from a like mid-sagittal section. Oh, we forgot a couple things, sorry. Before I end the video, we do have to go over the occipital bone. So let's see. There we go. Cool. So you have this really large bump, right? This is going to be your external occipital protuberance. Okay, and then you should see like almost like two lines. And let me see if there's a better image. If not, it's okay. I guess this image down here kind of shows them, right? There's these inferior ones, And then there's these superior lines, right? So the inferior ones would be the inferior nuchal lines. Then the superior ones would be superior nuchal lines. And then we know that the line that is connecting the external occipital protuberance to foramen magnum is going to be your external occipital crest. All right, so the other things that you can't see from here are going to be your concha, and then also the hyoid bone. So let's see, can we see the front of the, there we go. So we can see a little bit of the concha here, right? This one would be our middle. This one would be our inferior concha. And then the superior one would be like somewhere up here. It's the first most like top one. Then again, we said the hyoid bone was, let's see if we have something. Do we have something? Come on. No. Okay, so the hyoid bone is essentially just a kind of cute bone. If I was to draw it, probably gonna butcher it. But it's a bone that sits right on top of your larynx. So that's your hyoid. So make sure you're able to kind of take a look at that. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and if I missed any, you can also let me know. But yeah.